Death delivery. My name is Arthur, and I'm not a security guard. Although today I had to play one. I'm a former soldier, a former special operations agent, a former optimist. Now I'm just a man doing the job because there's no one else left to do it. And here I am, sitting in the back seat of an armored Suburban, watching the man in the rearview mirror on whom so much depends. Maybe even the end of the rod that has metastasized at the top of this country like a tumor. Are you sure you want to go through with this? I asked him, not taking my eyes off the road. I saw him shoot a pregnant woman in the face with a Beretta. Then he reloaded and finished off the others. The witness's voice trembled, not with fear, but fury. I can't forget their faces. I just can't. He clutched the tablet to his chest as if he wanted those images to burn straight through him. His name was Edward Lawson, an accountant, but not just any. He kept the black books for Lawrence Morgan, a man whose name was barely whispered in the news, a high-ranking official member of the National Security Committee and simultaneously the head of the most brutal drug cartel in the Southern Hemisphere. Murder, human trafficking, blackmail, torture for him. There were mere tools of power. Edward had recorded everything. Cameras, drones, hidden mics, anything he could get. He survived the slaughter in a hangar on the outskirts of Tucson. That day, it was meant to be a cleanup of witnesses, but he escaped. And now he was riding with me to court where he was going to speak. The motorcade consisted of 5 vehicles, 2 up front, 2 in the rear, ours in the middle, textbook formation, driver, me, and the witness. 3 people. Everything seemed under control, but everything seemed a little too smooth. The line of 5 black SUVs gleaming under the sun stretched down the highway like an armored centipede. The first and last vehicles were reinforced, each carrying 3 armed agents. The lead provided reconnaissance, and blocking the tail was cover. In the center, Edward, the witness, and me. At the 13th minute of the drive, just as we entered an open stretch of highway flanked by rocks and sparse trees, I felt that familiar itch in my gut. Bronson, our driver, must have read my mind. Don't like this zone. Too clean, he muttered, squinting at the rear view. Clean means someone's been scrubbing, I replied. Then the radio crackled. Vehicle 1 reporting, contact at 6 o'clock. Suspicious black Dodge Charger. No plates, speed consistent. Speed up, I ordered. Let the rear pair cover. Too late. A silver pickup shot out from the left bend and rammed the lead vehicle. A dull crash followed, then a blinding flash and a pillar of fire. The armor glass in our windshield fogged over from the heat. Vehicle 1 destroyed. Someone shouted into the radio, but their voice was cut short. Almost simultaneously, the second vehicle behind us tried to maneuver into a bypass position, but a rocket from the right hillside struck it. Shards of metal slammed against our hood as ash and glass rained from above. Second one's gone, I said flatly. The third, right behind us, managed to veer off and return fire. With a short burst from its mounted gun, one of the attackers on a motorcycle was taken out, along with his bike, but there was no time to celebrate. A second rocket, fired from a grave and hidden behind a billboard, struck them. The vehicle rolled and caught fire. Third is burning, I reported to myself, I scanning the chaos in the mirror. The last car, the fourth, tried to punch through the ambush, accelerating hard. But a black Tahoe shot out from the side road and T-boned it into a guardrail. Airbags deployed, but a second later, another blast, RPG again, turned the metal into a torn-up sardine can. All vehicles down, I concluded. We're the only ones left, and there are too many. Bronson opened his mouth to say something, then a shot rang out. A bullet pierced the windshield and punched through his cheekbone. He exhaled once before slumping forward. That's when I took the wheel. Another burst shattered the side window, and Bronson began choking. A bullet had torn through his neck. I grabbed the wheel, vaulted into the front seat, cracked my elbow on the dash, but managed to regain control. The car swerved, but I corrected course. Down, get down, I yelled at Edward. He was already crawling between the seats, shielding his head. I veered off-road. On the shoulder stood an old fence, an overgrown path, and at the end, an askew sign, danger. Private property, Warehouse number 47. How romantic, I muttered, flooring the gas. The car screeched onto the warehouse property and came to a halt in a cloud of dust. I yanked Edward by the collar and dragged him to the doors. If we live, I'm buying you a burger. I promised. If we die, it's your fault. I just wanted justice. He whispered. Well, here it comes. In black SUVs with RPGs and hangovers, I hauled him inside. A dusty hangar, rusted beams, old shelves, almost no light. This way, I shoved him behind a metal container. Don't move. No matter what. And you. Me. I unsheated my knife. How about a date? With 20 bastards, I bolted the door and pulled a Colt 1911 from my coat lining. Old but reliable. Like me. A minute later, they arrived. The door exploded outward, disjored to the ceiling. Headlights pierced the hangar as boots stomped inside. Loud, arrogant, steady. Our Thywer, a voice called. While this hand over the accountant will forget everything. You will live. Get a cottage. Plant radishes. Sure, I muttered. Right on his grave. They came in. First, a tank of a man with a machine gun. Second, with a shotgun. The rest carried a case. I had behind a support beam. Waited. Then lunged and slid the throat of the last in line. He didn't even squeak. I grabbed his AK mag full. Good. You think we won't find you? The voice echoed. We see everything. Soldier boy. Then watch this. I burst from cover and sprayed. Bullets. The first one took a burst to the chest. Armor failed. He dropped. The second tried to turn, but I'd already closed in and smashed his nose with the stock. A bone-crunching crack, and he collapsed with the screen. The third fired wildly. Bullets sipped. I dodged, rolled, and tossed a grenade. Old school smoke. They hesitated. I rushed one and drove the knife, and his gut. He gasped, clutching the wound. Another tried to shoot. Missed. Buckshot grazed my shoulder. Off for fuck's sake. I snarled through the pain and fired. The shot blew off half his face. I heard the commander screaming. Where is he? Where the fuck is he? I was already behind them. Right here, I whispered and dropped two with clean headshots. I kept mowing them down like grass under a reaper's side. They fell one by one. Red puddles blooming. 5 left. One rushed toward Edward's container. I shot him in the knee, then the head. Don't get close. He's allergic to assholes. I muttered. The rest charged. They scattered. Opened fire. Bullets sliced through walls, ricocheted off steel beams. One crept up on the side, but I heard gravel crunch and stabbed him in the thigh. He screamed. I drove the blade deeper, lifted him, and tossed him off the platform. He dropped like a sack of garbage. 3 leeches left. I whispered to myself. I spotted them. 1 left. 2 right. Coordinated. Silent. Not ordinary shooters. Former military. Just like me. And I like that. I pretended to run. One of them took the bait and broke cover. I spun around and fired. Point blank into his face. The second tried to flank me from behind, but I caught his leg with a metal hook and put 2 bullets into him. 1 remained. The leader. He stepped out slowly, unarmed, simply clapping. Bravo, Arthur. Quite the show. Shame no one will see it on TV. Oh, were you hoping for a live broadcast? I was hoping you'd die. Well, clearly I'll let you down. I said, raising my pistol. Got any last words? How about a grenade? He replied, pulling an RGD from his waistband and yanking the pin. I lunged forward, tackled him to the ground, and landed a punch. Then another and another. The grenade slipped from his hand and rolled across the floor. Oops, I muttered. I grabbed it and hurled it into a collapsed corner. The explosion rocked the building, but we had just enough time. He tried to rise. I stepped on his hand. That's for Bronson, I said hoarsely, and I snapped his neck. When I returned to Edward, he was still huddled against the metal, covered in dust. His eyes wide like a frightened rabbit's. Is it over? Yes. Now it's court time. What if they send more? I smiled. Then they'll have to knock on hell's door. And security's worse down there. He nodded. I looked at my hands. Bloody, dusty, marked with the fight. Come on, Edward. You have to survive, or this was all for nothing. We left the hangar behind us. 20 corpses and 1 promise in our wake. There will be justice for everything they've done. I drove away from the warehouse. The engine groaned like it understood. There was no turning back. The air inside reeked of gunpowder, sweat, and burns. Edward sat silently, staring at the floor, as if wishing he could dissolve into it. "You all right?" I asked without looking at him. "I want to puke," he rasped. "Hold it in. This isn't accounting with performance bonuses. Welcome to the real world." We drove a couple more miles. Just as I was starting to relax, my phone buzzed in my pocket. The tone wasn't the standard notification. It was the special alert I'd set for emergency messages under the Black Swan. Family protocol. I pulled out the phone. The screen displayed a link to a video. No sender. No subject. I tapped it, and the world went to hell. On the screen, my Claire. 16, my little girl. Mouth taped shut as panicked. Her hands were tied. She sat on the floor pressed against a concrete wall, behind her a grim basement. Beside her stood some bastard bearded leather jacket. Tattoos on his fingers and his hand. A knife. He slowly, deliberately dragged the tip along her cheek. "Arthur." The voice was raspy with a sick accent. "You kill my men impressive. Really? Like in the movies. But you're not walking away, pal. Want to see your sweetie in one piece? Ring the witness to this address. 2939 Cottonmouth Road. Chula Vista. Yeah, California. Sun. Palms. Corpses. Don't forget the witness." Oh, and he stepped aside. The camera turned. Annabelle, my wife, lying on the floor, her chest soaked in blood, as wide open, empty. I knew that stare. It couldn't be mistaken. Her head was twisted at an unnatural angle. Someone probably snapped her neck, then added a few confirmation blows. A photo followed the video. Close up, blood on her lips. My lips still remembered her morning kiss. I froze. My head hummed. They were under protection. I whispered, barely aware of myself. Under enhanced, goddamn protection. I immediately called the security detail. Once. Twice. 3 times. Silence. Finally, a call came in from the bureau. Familiar voice. "Lieutenant Harper." "Arthur." "Jesus. Where the hell are you?" He shouted. "Where's my family?" I asked. Flat and cold. "It's a massacre." He spoke fast. "All security personnel are dead. The house was burned. Bodies are unidentifiable, but 2 women and a girl are missing. I repeat, unaccounted for. We're sweeping the area, but it looks like they took them." I finished for him. "Yeah, I'm sorry, brother. I hung up." "Arthur," Edward began hesitantly. "Maybe I should. Get out. Out of the car." I glanced at him. "Want me to let you ride the hood?" "No. I mean, maybe you should drop me somewhere. I don't want to be the reason." I swerved hard, forcing him against the door. "Shut up. You don't make decisions now. You're the only card I haven't burned yet." We drove for nearly 5 hours. I didn't stop. The engine growled like a wounded beast. The site was deserted. An old factory abandoned ground. Cameras. Barbed wire. Blast craters. Your standard kill zone. I left Edward in a storm drain 100 meters out, with a radio and a pistol. For the first time today, he actually looked like a man. "If I'm not back in 2 hours, go through the tunnel. You have the coordinates." He nodded silently. I approached the building alone. Hands visible. My face. Whatever was left of it. A dog growled behind the fence. The gates opened well. Well, look who came to the wake. Came a familiar voice. The bastard in the leather coat. The one from the video. They frisked me. Took the pistol. Removed the holster. "Where's the witness? Where's my daughter?" He smirked. "Not big on negotiations." "Huh. Fine. Come on, Arthur. The boss has been waiting." They led me into the warehouse. It's dank of metal and damp. Rusted heaters. One with a thick chain and handcuffs. "Charming," I said. "Is the whiskey included? Or just the pain?" "Today's special. Pain. Friend. Plenty of it." They cuffed me. 5 of them around. One with a camera. One with pliers. One with a face that screamed unmedicated psycho. And him, the boss. He entered like an actor, stepping on stage. White shirt, vest, tie, Polish to the point of parody. "Arthur, Arthur, Arthur." He squatted in front of me. So much talent. Such a waste. "Who the hell are you?" I asked. "Me." He fanned offense. "Just a middleman. But you know me as the guy holding a knife to your daughter's throat." Drop dead. "Huh. Getting warmer. Now, want to know who sold you out? He waved a hand. One of the goons brought a tablet. A video. I didn't want to look, but I did. Annabelle, my wife, in a black tank top, smiling. Next to her, Jason McMurphy, your employee, former analyst, now head of internal security. We served together. He'd been in my home, made my food, played chess with Claire. He had his arm around Annabelle's waist. She kissed him. They laughed, walked along the beach. The boss's voice again. They've been together for a while. Thought you wouldn't find out. They sold the protection. Coordinates. We paid well. But that's not all. A new video. They stood before the camera. Annabelle and Jason. Beach. Sunshine. Cocktails in hand. Sorry, Arthur. We just got tired of you. Annabelle said. You turned cold. And then came the offer. Good money. A fresh start. And dangerous, Jason added. But now it's over. We're starting new lives. The bodies they find. Not us. Teeth from donors. Dennis did it right. Let them burn. No one will ever know. Goodbye. Artie. The video faded. I said nothing. Try to breathe. Try not to think. But inside, everything was screaming. Beautiful. Isn't it? The bastard sneered. But I think it's about time you gave us something. He clapped his hands. They brought Claire in. Alive. Tied up. Terrified. He dragged the knife along her cheek. So, Arthur, want us to play with her the same way we played with your marriage? He raised the blade to her. Throat. Where's the witness? I looked up, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I smiled. My wrist burned. The skin beneath the metal cuff was torn raw, joints throbbing. But I didn't feel pain anymore. Only a precise, savage desire to tear out the throat of every breathing thing in that room. The main bastard leaned closer to my daughter. His knife once again slid down her cheek. Claire didn't cry. Good girl. My girl. She stared at me with wide, steady eyes, silently saying, Dad, don't give in. Not even for me. And I already knew what to do. Learn it long ago. The old trick. Break the thumb. Twist the hand. Slip out the cuff. I twisted my wrist. The cracks sounded dull, like uncorking an old bottle of bourbon. Well, damn. I rotted at my teeth. Good thing I never planned on learning the guitar. I slowly freed my hand, quietly, carefully. One of the guards glanced my way. I froze, yanned and looked away. Perfect. Guess they hired security off Craigslist. The main bastard straightened and gave me a long look. Last chance, Arthur. Where's the witness? Or we'll turn your little girl into a decorative figurine. Let's start with the ears. I've always thought they were a bit too symmetrical. You know, I said hoarsely, you'd make a hell of a barber. Shame you what with machetes instead of razors. He laughed. Broad. Theatrical. Loves himself. Good. Those types relax the fastest. So, where is he? Talk before she hit soprano in the key of blood. I didn't answer. Instead, I lunged. The first was to my left. I slammed my elbow into his throat, crunch like snapping an old radish. He choked and dropped his gun. I snatched it, pressed it to my chest, and flipped the safety. Aimed. Smile. Asshole, I said. Pulled the trigger. The leader caught a round in the shoulder. He didn't get the chance to yank Claire, pull it through him back. He screamed, clutching the meat, and stumbled toward the door. Dad, Claire shouted. It's okay, sweetheart. Showtime's starting. No auto-tune this time. They all charged. 5 bodies. 5 juiced up, pissed off bastards with guns. And all of them thought I was the kind of guy you could take with numbers. The first I met with the body of the guard, I just dropped. Used him like a shield. Rounds thundered into his back like I was standing behind a sack of raw steak. I fired through his shoulder, bullet punched through, and nailed 2 at once. One dropped, with a shredded throat. The second screamed, clutching his gut, but I finished him off without emotion. 2 shots, one to the stomach, one to the head, package sealed. The third rushed in, but tripped over a corpse. Rookie mistake. Careful. It's slippery, especially with brains. I quipped and emptied a burst into his chest. He flew back, leaving a red smear behind him like a meat target. On a range wall, the fourth went for a flank. I heard his steps. Light. Fast. Young. Probably. Once dreamed of being a hero. I let him come closer, then spun and smashed the rifle, but into his nose. Crunch. Blood geyser. Scream. You breathe so loud, they'd think you're an oil rig in Texas. I growled. He fell but wasn't out. I planted my boot on his face and it. Quiet now. Eternal sleep. No snoring. I muttered as his skull cracked like a quail egg. The fifth was the boldest. Big as a fridge, armored up, shotgun in hand. He fired. The shot missed, but the air trembled from the blast. I ducked behind a pillar. Oh, so close. I yelled, but your hands are shaking. Like a schoolboy on his first date. He snarled and racked another shell. I darted out from the side. He didn't expect it. I closed the gap, grabbed the barrel, and pushed it upward. He fired. Ceiling exploded in dust. Never trust thick barrels. I whispered in his ear and elbowed him in the jaw. He staggered. I struck again, nose, eyes, throat. He fell, groaning but conscious. Heavy one. I grabbed a guard's knife and plunged it into his eye. See? Now you really can't. I muttered. He twitched and went still. The bullets were gone. Silence. Blood pooled on the floor like someone threw a borscht festival. The air reeked of gunpowder, meat, and vengeance. I turned. Claire was still tied to a pipe, staring at me. Her eyes were wet. In them, everything at once. Fear, love, respect, shock. I rushed over. You hurt? I asked, cutting her. Restraints. No, just my heart stopped a couple times. Dad. Her lips trembled. Don't worry. Just a rough day. I was planning pizza and a movie, honestly. And I thought shopping. Yeah, corpse shopping. No discounts today. She let out a shaky laugh and hugged me. I held her tight. It's okay. Daddy's here. I exhaled, feeling my pulse return. Now he settled the score. He ran. She whispered. The main one. I know, but he's got a bullet in his shoulder. Wherever he runs, he'll leave a red trail. What now? I stood, reloaded a captured pistol, grabbed one of their rifles. Now, sweetheart, the hunt begins. And this time, we're not playing hide and seek. Claire was shaking. Not like a victim, like someone whose nerves had finally burned out after hours of terror. Her fingers clenched into fists, but her eyes were steady, just like her mother, only with my rage simmering under the skin. I grabbed her hand, let her pass the corpses, tried to shield her from the view, but she looked. Anyway, Claire walked by the bastard who had first put a knife to her throat and quietly said, Okay, he won't hurt any more girls, right? The only thing he'll be touching now is asphalt. With his face, I said, squeezing her hand tighter. Let's go. He's still alive, but not for long. Outside, the air was different. Pressure, as if even the evening itself didn't want to be part of what happened inside that building. I found an old camper, van curtains drawn. One of the guards I dropped earlier was still lying by the back door. I picked up his phone. Old model, cracked screen still worked. Perfect. Look, I told Claire dial this number right now. Say code 33. Confirmed Arthur alive, target verified, requesting evac, got it. Code 33. Confirmed Arthur alive, target verified, requesting evac, she repeated. I was locked on the phone. Good girl. I kissed her forehead. Lock the doors. Get on the floor. Our people will be here soon. If anyone shows up, and they're not special forces. Aim for the crotch. Dad, I don't have a gun. I handed her a knife. Its blade still red. Then slice. My cake. No candles, though. She took it with icy resolve. I knew my girl could handle herself. I closed the door behind her. And now I exhaled, touched my broken thumb. Pain flared, but it didn't matter. Time to end the concert. I stepped back into the building, like coming home, only instead of slippers, there was an AK slung over my shoulder. Instead of news on TV, there was blood splattered on the walls. And instead of family, scum with assault rifles who still hadn't realized. I wasn't a target. I was the sentence. The first one I encountered was in the hallway, sitting, smoking, scrolling on his phone. TikTok or something else made no difference. Both died with him. I moved in quietly, raised the rifle, pressed it to his head. Hey kid, I whispered. You hit like on that? He turned his head. The bullet entered his forehead at such an angle that the back of his skull flew 2 meters and smeared the graffiti behind him. No likes, no comments. I muttered and moved on. The next one was in the tech room, staring at monitors. I crouched, crept up, grabbed him by the hair, and smashed his face against the table. The screen cracked, blood spilled over the keyboard. Control, delete, asshole. I hissed and slammed his head again. His skull caved like a riot. On the second floor, two Reese seated by the stairs chatting. You saw Bucha lying there. One said, "Yeah, looked like someone sculpted intestines out of him." The other laughed. I tossed a piece of pipe down. They turned. With a burst fire, one's chest exploded like he had a can of tomato paste inside. The other took a round to the knee. He screamed, collapsed, tried crawling away. I approached. "What was it you said about my daughter?" I asked. "You were." "I didn't." He choked on snot and fear. "So you lied. Just like your teeth." I raised the rifle and smashed the butt into his mouth. Crunch. Blood. Teeth across the floor. He gurgled. "Oh, now you're honest and toothless." Enjoy the silence. One shot to the forehead. Period. I stepped into the main hall. The boss was nowhere to be seen, but I knew he hadn't run. He wasn't the type. He was hiding, somewhere licking his wounds. The bastard was cunning, but not smarter than me. I heard footsteps. In the basement. Metal salts. He was in a hurry. Limping hard. That bullet in the shoulder wouldn't let him forget our last meeting. I descended. Backroom. Concrete walls. Dark. Water. Dripping. An old sledgehammer rested in the corner, as if it had been waiting for me. Massive. Rusted. Like sin. And there he was. The boss. Crouched down. Clutching his wound. Gun in hand. The barrel trembling. "Oh, Arthur." He rasped. "Let's make a deal." "Of course. You tell me where my wife is. And in return, I won't kill you quickly. You've killed many. But not enough. You still won't leave this place alive." "Yeah, you had that. Offer killed 10. Get one free, right?" He tried to shoot. I'd already kicked the pistol from his hand. He screamed. "Where is Annabelle?" "Arthur, you wouldn't understand." I brought the sledgehammer down, striking the floor next to his head. "Where?" Okay. He gasped. "Casa del March. Isla del Sol. House number 8. Beach Villa. Panama. She's with McMurphy. It's all been arranged. Fake bodies. A dentist. New papers. They paid us. We just used you." I stood silent, breathing. He looked at me, smiled. "Go ahead. Finish it. It won't change a thing. You've already lost." "No, I'm not done yet." I raised the sledgehammer. "This one's for Claire." Smash. "This one's for the guards." Crack. Skull giving way. "This one's for Annabelle, who, unfortunately for you, is still alive." Crunch. Brain on the wall. "And this, just because you're a piece of shit." The final blow shattered what was left of his face. He didn't breathe again. Hell wouldn't take him too many complaints from the previous tenants. I emerged. Men in armor were already entering the building. Ours. Special forces. Cleanup crew. The remaining bastards were either finished off or coughed. Target inside. Alive. Someone shouted into the radio. "Arthur." Captain Miles ran up. "Jesus. Man, are you okay?" "Perfect. Just a broken finger. An empty mag and brain matter on my boots." The witness. "Storm drain. 100 meters southwest. He's at a radio. Passwords domino. Still breathing. And the girl. Locked in the van. Take care of her. Put her somewhere safer than heaven. I swear. She'll be okay." I nodded. Reloaded. Spat on the floor. "Now, Miles." "Yeah, let's get to court. Time to turn this circus into breaking news." We rode in silence. The van led. Edward and I were in the armored car behind. 3 more vehicles flanked us. Miles' team. Claire was safe. I checked twice. One of the agents, a bulldog-faced woman in uniform, said, "Anyone messes with us, they get the full package. Bullet, whip, and vinegar." I was fine with that. The witness kept fidgeting with his cuff. Hands trembling. "Relax. Eddie, just a few hours and you'll be CNN's newest hero. Your testimony won't just take Morgan down. You'll trend on Twitter for like 2 days until the cat videos return. I just want him a face. Justice." He murmured. "Oh, he will. Not yours, though. The jury's. Maybe God's. Though I doubt. God wants him." The courthouse was barricaded like they expected a riot. And they weren't wrong. Morgan wasn't just a bureaucrat. He was a parasite fused into the marrow of the system. In court, he wasn't defending himself. He was offended by the very idea of being judged. When we entered, the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. Every media outlet was there. Dozens of reporters, prosecutors, agents, armed guards, and Morgan supporters in $1,000 suits and $1 million silences. Maybe literally. Morgan sat with his lawyers, composed. Smug, his suit like armor, his cufflinks probably worth more than my old apartment. He turned, curious who entered. When his eyes met Edward's, I saw his jaw twitch, like someone had thrown rotten herring in his face. Jesus Christ, one of his attorneys, muttered. Edwards, alive, whispered a journalist in the front row. It's him, the one who. Hello, Lawrence, I said, settling into the front row. Didn't expect me. Huh? He said nothing, just stared face like stone, but his hands clenched on the table. Confidence trickled from his fingers like sand. The judge, an elderly black man with the face of an undertaker and the voice of a cement mixer, banged a gavel. Court is in session. Case 2345. X, United States versus Lawrence J. Morgan, proceeding with key witness testimony. Edward was called to the stand. He walked forward like a schoolboy heading into an exam, calm on the outside. But I knew that inside, he was tearing apart. He began to speak quietly at first. Then, with growing resolve, I worked for Lawrence Morgan for 6 years. He began. I handled his accounting. At first, it was all legal. Then other accounts began to appear. Cash, anonymous transfers, logistics with no paperwork, private flights with passengers who had no documents. And I realized I wasn't running a business anymore. I was managing a war against humanity. He spoke of that night, the massacre in the hangar, how he survived. He showed photos, videos, recordings of Morgan, giving the orders, firing of prisoners himself. Each word, a hammer strike, each image, a nail in the coffin. Morgan sat there, jaw clenched, and then he exploded. This is a lie, he shouted, springing to his feet. You're all puppets. I built this country while you were making YouTube videos. The judge banged his gavel. Mr. Morgan, sit down and be silent. I don't give a damn about your court, he roared. You think if they don't acquit me, I'll just walk out the front door? No, I've got my own exits. I stood. My hand rested on the pistol beneath my jacket. So what's it going to be? Lawrence, rooftop exit? Or are you turning this into a full-blown circus? That's when his men sprang up. 5, 6, 8 of them, all in a courtroom, suits and ties, but under their jackets, compact assault rifles. One of them shouted. Everyone on the floor. Chaos erupted. Bullets tore through microphones, shredded benches, chewed up wooden panels. Screams. People duffed for cover. I ducked behind a pew and drew my pistol. You bastards, I hissed. You just can't do anything without a show. I fired. One grabbed his chest and was thrown back. Another fired blindly, hitting the ceiling. I lunged forward, smashed him in the face, broke his nose, and finished him with a shot to the chest. The judge screamed. Security. Code red. Then a roar, concrete shattered like an egg carton. Dust. Rebar flying. A black armored Tahoe tore through the wall. A roof-mounted cannon. The logo of a private military contractor emblazoned on the side. Well, shit, I muttered. Now this is serious. The door swung open. Men in black armor. Helmets. Visors. One had an RPG. Another shotgun in hand. Morgan. This way. Morgan ran like a rat off a burning ship. One of his men fired from the window. Rounds flying past me, into the guards, into the ceiling. One agent fell beside me, blood bubbling, from a neck wound. I grabbed a rifle off a corpse and sprayed the Tahoe's wheels. Don't let them escape, I shouted. Locked down the back streets. But it was too late. Morgan dove inside. The door slammed shut. The Tahoe reversed through the wall, through the concrete, like butter under a hot knife. I fired again, and again, the bullets sparked off the armor but didn't penetrate. The vehicle vanished in a cloud of dust. I lowered my weapon. Well, Morgan, I whispered. You didn't leave through the door, but you're not walking out of this story alive. Miles approach. From behind, his shoulder bleeding. Arthur, perimeter secure. We've swept the area. The witness. Alive. Hiding under a bench. Shaking like a leaf. Good. Send a chopper for Claire. Get her out of the city. Somewhere impenetrable. Antarctica. If you have to. I don't want her here when the next chapter starts. He nodded. And you? I slammed a fresh mag into the rifle. Me? I'm going to court. The real one, where Morgan won't be sitting at the table. He'll be lying in a cage. His last one. By the time Morgan's armored truck broke through the courthouse wall, I was already chasing him. Like a bullet, only not made of lead. Alive. Furious. Untiring. My Tahoe roared like a beast. As if it too knew who we were hunting. Morgan was slipping away. A fat worm in a boot. Slick. Vile. But vulnerable. Come on, Lawrence. I muttered, pressing the pedal to the floor. Let's see how well you run without someone pouring you scotch in a crystal glass. Sirens screamed behind us. The court had become a war zone. But now the battlefield was moving on. Wheels. We tore through the business district. Flattened trash bins, crashed through barriers, scattered cyclists, and ruined a wedding photo shoot. From the window, the bride screamed, "God damn it." And I thought, seems like a good omen. The Tahoe swerved twice, barrels stuck out of the windows, shots aimed at our tires. But my old Tahoe wasn't some plastic junk from overseas. It took the bullets like a dog takes rain, snarling. At a junction, Morgan's driver made a hard left too sharp. Inertia caught him. The trucks slammed into a concrete structure, an old guard booth, or maybe part of an abandoned factory. A deep crash. Dust. The engine held like a wounded animal. I braked 20 meters away. My engine died almost knowingly, like it sensed it was time for the final act. I stepped out, grabbed the rifle, checked the mag, looked around. Deserted street. Just us in the cement. The Tahoe's door burst open. The first one jumped out, gun ready, spotted me. I faked a movement. He aimed and caught a round to the neck. Blood sprayed. He dropped across the hood. The second one climbed up top. I sprinted forward, leapt onto my hood, pushed off into the air and fired. He pulled the trigger, but only managed to shoot out the street light. Fell back inside, curled over. What's wrong? Half-baked Rambo. I snorted. From that angle, your brain drains down. Not your strategy. The third came from the side. Tall. Balaclava. Shooting from instinct. Not sight. I rolled left to a chunk of brick at the windshield. He turned and took 2 rounds in the chest. Lunged at me like he'd throttle me with his final thought. I smashed the butt of the rifle into his throat. He wheezed like a pig on a spit before collapsing to his knees. Don't move. You'll suffocate. Oxygen's not free here. I whispered into his ear before finishing him off. One left. Stayed in the shadows. He'd watched me gut his team. He tried stepping out, hands raised. Wait. I'm just a driver. I know tax code, not the combat manual. Really? I raised the rifle. And how much did they deduct? From your last bonus? He stammered. Exactly. Let's zero that out. Bullet to the forehead. He dropped flat. No last words this time. Silence. I approached the Tahoe. The engine coughed like it had bronchitis. Fuel leaked beneath. It reeked of oil, heat, and decay. Morgan was inside, trapped. His left leg crushed between the door and console. He was writhing, trying to free himself, wedged in like meat in a sandwich. There you are, king of shit, I said, looming over him. Arthur, listen. You can't. You mustn't. His voice trembled. I'm a citizen. I have rights. I'm entitled to a trial. This is due process. The Constitution. 5th Amendment. 10th. I don't remember. But one of them's about me. I crouched beside him, looked him in the eyes. You know, warrants. I rested the rifle on my shoulder. Every bastard like he remembers the law at the same moment when they look it in the eyes for the first time. He tried grabbing my arm. I jerked it away like he'd spit on it. Let me go. I beg you. I have money. Connections. I can make you a god in this country. Just get me out of here. You want a trial? I asked. Fine. I stood up. Just remember, trial doesn't always mean flags and courtrooms. Sometimes it means streets, blood, and very bad decisions. Yours and mine. Morgan choked out. You're not a judge. I turned, pointed at the ground. The fuel had already spread, reaching a pile of shattered glass and a headlight wire. A spark. No, but I have a sentence. The spark ignited a droplet. Flames flared and raised toward the armored vehicle. No, no, please, he screamed. The howl was feral. I stood 5 meters away, face like stone, as reflecting the tongues of fire. You're burning, Lawrence. No less than the enemies you left to die. The fire reached the fuel tank. Boom. The first explosion was muffled, like something detonating from within. Then a second. Flames burst through the windows. The metal bowed as though the vehicle itself tried to take a final breath. I stood there, watching, until everything went still. And just like that, I murmured. A man who thought he stood above the law. Burnt. We flew over Panama in a helicopter that creaked like an old pacemaker. My squad was with me. 7 men, each one like a Swiss Army knife, only with a face that would give Chuck Norris a nervous twitch. Armor. Rifles. Silence. Everyone knew. This wasn't an operation. This was reckoning. Target in sight. The pilot reported in my earpiece. Casa del March. House number 8. Thermal shows 2 inside. 5 guards on perimeter. Another 3 on the roof. A couple more in the underground. Likely. Copy. Land us behind the villa. Quiet. Let's make sure they don't realize the finale's already started. I replied, checking. My weapon. I had a Scar L, a suppressor, 2 mags, and a craving to shoot someone whose name started with him, preferably McMurphy. Hey, Arthur said Garcia, my old partner. Think they're still hoping to get away? Hoping. I smirked. Right now, they're probably sipping margaritas, arguing about who gets to grow mint on the windowsill, not realizing they're minutes away from stuffing their own guts back in. Who? I love it when you get poetic. Garcia chuckled. It's like a postcard from hell. The helicopter settled behind a ridge. The grass waved as if it sensed a storm coming. I signaled. Forward. We approached the villa from the south. Defense was as always tall, useless, and expensive. We cut the camera feed, disabled the power, and crept up to the first guard. He was by the bushes, smoking, probably thinking about a race, or where best to bury the dog that wouldn't stop barking. Didn't matter. A second later, he was contemplating his immortal soul. One down, I whispered. What? About a cigarette? Mail. Our sniper asked. Let it burn. We'll say you just got tired of life. I answered. Moving on. Second guard. By the pool. Nice view. Palm trees. Water. Pure resort. Except he didn't notice the man behind him. A man for whom resort men are shooting range. With bonus rounds. Pushed. Want to see a magic trick? I said. He turned, saw me, and caught a knife in the carotid artery. Vanishing brain matter. Tonight's main act. I muttered, lowering the body into the water. By the time we reached the front entrance, 3 were dead. 1 in the bushes. 1 in the pool. The third slumped in a lounge chair, facing a bar menu. If we'd written martini on his forehead, no one would have batted an eye. We stormed the house like the IRS busting into a shady accountant's office. On the floor, Garcia shouted, I had it, or at least I beautifully, so we don't have to mop up the mess. The first shots rang out, bullets screaming like a kettle. In a serial killer's kitchen, 1 guard tried jumping from the stairs. I put 3 rounds in him. His flight ended on the carpet, where he painted a new, abstract pattern. Another returned fire, but Bale nailed him right in the nose. Ugh, there goes his career, Bale muttered, flicking a shell. Casing aside, we cleaned out the remaining bastards with precision. 2 were left. When those last 2 realized their survival odds were about the same as a rhinoceros at the ballet, they raised their hands. Don't shoot. We're just guards. Minimum wage. Yeah, and minimum's what you're getting, Garcia said, knocking them out with his rifle stock. No kills on these. Let them lie there and reflect on retraining. I ordered. I climbed to the top floor lounge with panoramic windows. They were waiting. That son of a bitch. Jason McMurphy, shirt unbuttoned to the chest, pistol in hand, face begging for a sign that read, sold for a pack of dollars and 2 kisses. Beside him, Annabelle, my ex, Still alive. Still beautiful. And now someone else's. A goddamn traitor. Arthur Jason said. You got here fast. I just popped the champagne. Celebrating your own funeral in advance. I aimed. Let's talk. He said. It's over. You stormed in. Sure, but you've got no proof. I'm a hero. She's the victim. You're the lunatic. That's your idea of convincing me not to shoot. I smirked. I'm not leaving here in cuffs, he said. He turned to Annabelle. Smiled. Sweetheart, anything to say to your ex? Last chance. She looked at me for a long, long time. And then, yes, I do, she said. Voice cold as a needle in a vein. I hope you die, bastard. She pulled out a grenade. Well, now, I said. Finally something. Interesting. And she threw it at me. Reflexes like a cat served a firecracker in its bowl. I batted it away with the rifle stock. The grenade arced back straight toward them. Into the corner. Boom. The explosion ripped through everything. Walls cracked. Just hung like doomsday fog. The roars sounded like hell itself had collapsed. Into the room. I hit the floor, instincts ahead of thought. The grenade that bitch flung at me. Bounced back, blew up under their feet. It was as if fate itself whispered. Time to pay your debts. Scum. McMurphy flew into the air like a drone made by amateurs slammed into the wall. His jaw didn't follow. Just vanished. As if the hand of some explosive god had muttered. You talk too much. Now gurgle like a toilet in hell. He choked. His lower face was a stew of bone, meat, and burnt beard. His hands clawed the air, searching for his chin. But there was only scorch mush. Well, Jason, I rasped, stepping closer. Looks like you're done selling bullshit. He gurgled. I was starting like cockroaches in a microwave. Didn't want to leave in cuffs. I leaned down. Congrats. You're leaving without a face. Poetic justice. If you ask me, Annabelle's fate wasn't any better. The blast had blown the window out like a hammer through glass. Shards flew in a glittering storm of death. She'd been too close. Too arrogant. Too late. The shockwave tossed her like a rag doll right through the shattered frame where a second ago. There had been nothing but ocean view. The glass didn't just break. It became blades. Gleaming executioners. One shard thick as a machete, sharp as revenge slammed into her neck. She hung on it like a fishhook, twisted once more and collapsed onto the terrace. The glass protruding from her like a grotesque collar. I crawled closer. Saw her. Blood sprayed in bursts. A torn artery pulsing in panic. Annabelle clutched her throat, trying to plug death with her fingers. Eyes wide. Panic. Pain. Realization. No. I'm sorry. No, forgive me. Just raw animal fear that it was over. She tried to speak. Only a gurgling gasp came out. Foam and blood filled her mouth. She choked, coughed, twitched a few more times, and her hands went limp. Her body followed. She lay on the tile floor, drenched in blood like a defective mannequin thrown from a display window. I looked at her for a few seconds. Without pity. Without words. Well, Annabelle, I whispered. Here's your new life. Without me. And I walked away. There was still work to be done. 2 months passed. 2 months without gunfire. Without screams. Without the stench of gunpowder. Only fresh coffee in the morning, warm breeze, and the sound of footsteps on wooden floorboards. Claire and I lived in a small house by the lake. The house was old, but it had character, just like me. Ever since we escaped that slaughter, I made myself a promise. No more revenge. No more war. Only life. For her. For Claire. Dad, came a voice from the kitchen. Did you seriously eat all the pancakes again? I set the newspaper aside and rolled lazily on the couch. What could I do? They were looking at me like a jury looks at the guilty. I cracked under pressure. Claire emerged with a tray. She was in pajamas, her hair in a messy bond. Her face bore a mix of annoyance and the kind of affection you can't unlearn. You're like a squirrel in a diner, robbing food without a shred of shame. At least squirrels have fluffy tails. Me, I tapped my bald head. All charm and wisdom. She snorted. Your wisdom's like a microwave, fast, loud, and always humming. We laughed, and it was real. After the hell, everything we went through left its mark. I knew Claire remembered. Sometimes she woke up in a cold sweat. Sometimes she just sat quietly, saying nothing. But she coped. We coped. Together. I took her to a therapist. The idea of therapy, for someone like me, a soldier, felt like trying to explain yoga to a suicide bomber. But it helped. So how was the doctor? I asked one day when she came back from session. Better than you, she said. At least he doesn't say, now imagine he has a rifle and you've got a hostage. I smiled. I only did that once. Twice, she corrected. And you showed me how to knock him out with a stool. What can I say? Occupational hazard. On the bright side, she now knew how to drop any therapist with a chair. A surprisingly useful skill. School and change. Claire returned to school. We picked one nearby. Small, quiet. The teachers were polite, and no one droned on about social reintegration. One teacher, Miss Jane, once approached me. Mr. Arthur, were you ever in action? Movies by chance? No, I replied. I just live like a director's, always yelling action. She smiled, politely. But afterwards, she looked at me with a new level of caution. Can't blame her scars. The stare, the habit of scanning every room for cover. Not exactly PDA material. But Claire was adapting. She made new friends. One of them, surprisingly, was a boy named Miles. Wore glasses, a Star Wars t-shirt, and tried to joke worse than me. Do you like him? I asked one evening. Claire blushed. Dad, he's just a friend. Fine. But if he starts cracking lightsaber jokes, I'll dunk his face in soup. Gently, you're awful. I'm a dad. That's worse. Old habits. I couldn't fully leave the past behind. Some mornings I still train out back. Pull-ups, runs, shooting tin cans. Back to playing solo Rambo again. Claire asked once. Stepping outside with an apple. It's not a game. It's discipline. Yeah, sure. Especially when you fall off the bar and curse, so loud the neighbors think HBO's filming a new series. She had a point. My joints creaked like a worn-out canoe, but I kept at it. Because as long as I stayed in shape, I could protect her. And that meant everything. One evening, one night, we sat by the fire pit. In the backyard. The sun was setting, mosquitoes drifting lazily in the air. The scent of toasted marshmallows all around. Dad, Claire said suddenly, do you ever regret how it all turned out? I stared into the fire. I regret letting you end up in that hell. I regret not seeing how deep the route went. I regret trusting the wrong people. But I turned to her. I've never once regretted saving you, choosing you. She was quiet for a moment and said, I love you, Dad. I chuckled. Well, you didn't have a choice. We've got joint mortgage. Love's part of the package. She laughed and hugged me. And I thought, even if everything ended here and now, I'd choose the same path. Every single time, the future life went on. No more rates, no more betrayal, no more grenades. I opened a small workshop, repaired boat motors, made custom knives peaceful my hands smelled. Of oil, not blood. People came by. Call me just Arthur. No one asked why I had the eyes of a man who'd already attended his own funeral. Claire painted. Yes, after all that carnage she painted. She had an eye for light, for detail. One day I looked at her canvas and said, you have a gift. You say that like you're afraid I'll become an artist and forget how to reload a pistol. Well, let's just say I'd prefer you didn't defend yourself with a paintbrush. She laughed. Life found its rhythm. We were a family. A bit worn, scarred, but real. And what I valued most in all of it was something simple. We were alive. Now each day isn't a shot fired. It's a choice. To be present. To be alive. To be a father. And I don't give a damn if I'm no longer an agent. Or a soldier or a hero. I'm Arthur. I'm a dad. And damn it, I'm happy. Thank you for taking the time to read this story. If you enjoyed it, subscribe, like, and share in the comments. Remember, history is a witness to the past, a light of truth, a living memory, a teacher of life, a messenger of antiquity, and see you soon.